So for instance, if like if you say, yeah, it's the fact that I'm not thinking when I say that about the I forget how you put it, but the difference between the local case and the imported case, right?
Right.
You know, I mean, by analogy, you know, opening the window on the airplane, or just the fact that, you know, that you've got people here who are paying taxes to help build out local infrastructure that some titan of industry is going to leverage and globalize, right? And, you know, that money is not coming back to the people who are paying taxes.
So these games, the totality of these games is what got us very angry at the Clinton era people.
Yeah.
Is that the Brad DeLongs and Paul Krugmans and Jagdish Bhagwatis and Bill Clintons of the world, all these people pushed out this idea, and we didn't know how to oppose it. But what they were doing was allowing a slice of our country to continue to grow its slices of the pie.
But again, it's just easy to find the non-nefarious, not malignantly selfish understanding of what happened.
Strange.
I'll give you another example, which I think you're totally familiar with, but will seem less sinister, or at least it seems so to me. So you take what happened to the music industry, right?
Yeah.
So it's like we have a breakthrough in technology. We go from vinyl to CDs, and then I mean those, you know, we suffer those jewel cases for about a decade, and then we get MP3s, which open the door to piracy of a sort no one has anticipated, and then we managed to close down the piracy. We have the iTunes store, and people are, but because of this explosion of piracy, and now the prospect of just, you know, now it's all bits, it's not atoms anymore. We have just a fundamental devaluation of the product, right? Like the music, the value of the music has basically gone to zero, right? Because my using a copy of it is not taking it from you.
Because of two things. It's exhaustibility and excludability. So the idea is that if I buy a vinyl record, one, my use of it will eventually wear down the grooves, as we used to do in the old days. And two, my having the record means that you don't have that copy. And that the unit cost is not zero.
Yes, I can't copy your record for free. Yeah.
That is this issue about private goods and services became public goods and services. And even the diehard economists who are free market have to recognize that if something is inexhaustible and inexcludable, price does not equal value. And therefore it cannot command its value. So that was clear to many of us, just as...
But I'm saying there's a non-nefarious account of what happened there, where your iTunes, right, your Apple, you open iTunes for the good of all, right? But you obviously want to make a profit, right? This is a fantastic business. But if you're the musician whose catalog is now worth, you know, 1/10 of what it used to be worth, and now you have this sort of life change foisted on you, where now the only way for you to make ends meet is to tour, but you're, you know, 70 years old, and you felt your touring was behind you, right? All of this looks awful, but again, nobody was thinking about that guy when these changes were
bullshit.
Well,
I totally don't agree with it.
It's easy to see that most people weren't thinking. No one had bad intentions toward that guy.
Remember, information just wants to be free, and free like beer and all this nonsense. I thought that stuff was just like moronic at the time. Right. Okay. And the same thing with NAFTA, right? The claim, but again, so what you had in your sights was not. You can't. I don't think you have the wrong theory of mind if you think everyone was aware of what you were aware of and just had the ethical switch flipped in the other direction. The economic class teaches public goods in every Econ 101 textbook.
Right.
They also teach trade. They have two different names for what happens to improve a society in terms of how it's measured. One called Pareto improvement, which is that everybody in the society is as good or better off. And the other one called Caldor-Hicks, which is some people get hurt, some people get helped. But were you to tax the winners to pay the losers, everyone could be Pareto improved. Yeah. Okay. When you ask these people in real time, why are you talking about a Kaldor-Hicks improvement in Pareto terms? So this is the technical, esoteric conversation. Why is your exoteric description of this at odds with your esoteric? Right? This is pure Straussian cryptic bullshit. Mm. They say, well, we can't really say that, and we hope that somebody, it's not our job. It was this wall of total nonsense. And it wasn't that this wasn't being said in real time. It's that the number of people...
I'm sure you can find the people at the conference who were, I mean, it's, you know, they have one way of speaking to the profession and one way of speaking on the op-ed page of the New York Times.
This is one of the reasons why you and I split on Nassim Taleb. I stood shoulder to shoulder with Nassim during the total nonsense called the Great Moderation in our financial structure before 2008.
Right. And the only reason why I've split on Nassim is that he just wakes up one morning and off his meds and attacks me for reasons I can never fathom. Right? So it's like it's totally personal, or it's intended to be personal. It's not that I take it personally. I mean, I don't
even think it's intended to be personal. But he can correct me on that.
But it's apropos of nothing. Like I've been sleeping when he was sleeping, and then I turn on Twitter and I see that he's attacked me by name for some reason.
When my phone lights up and it says
there's
Nassim,
no intellectual content.
When it says Nassim Nicholas Taleb, he's been my friend for a long time. I literally shake. Like I have to hit right.
Okay,
answer.
Well, but that's a problem of his personality that he's exporting to the environment.
No,
you're part of the environment.
Look, Nassim is not an inside cat. He just isn't. I see the things he does, and I get a lump in my throat, and I think, am I going to have to defend this? I know what he does, but I think people don't understand him. So at least let me offer up an apology for Nassim Taleb, which he may rip my head off for saying. Nassim is constructed around things that are much larger than what other people are considering. And I'm not saying that he does everything well. I obviously have a totally different tack than he does. So I'm very uncomfortable with his methods, but let's at least say what they are and steelman it to the extent possible. Other people say you, Joe, are misusing statistics. Nassim would say there's a problem with statistics.
Yeah.
And it's constructed to be misused, and it's misused all the time in the same way. And if you do anything that you were normally taught to do in statistics class, if you have a PhD in statistics, you're part of the problem, and I'm going to hold you personally responsible.
Right.
Now, this is very disconcerting to people.
Yeah. I don't think we should spend a lot of time on this, but there are areas where I am not qualified to fact check him. But the areas where I am, where his opinions are just as strident, it's just a deluge of bullshit coming from him. So, like, the stuff he has said about religion and science is not even. I mean, the truth is, it's not even wrong. It's like it's incoherent. It's not like he's got a counterpoint that I still think is wrong, but it has to be argued against.
Look, I've gotten there.
It's just this vomitous.
Look, I've gotten there too. I can't stand the style because it just hurts me. Like I'm very uncomfortable by it. However, there are plenty of times when I thought he was talking nonsense. That, like, at first it sounds like he's making a sensible objection. Then I'm just like convinced he's going off the rails. Right. And then I push further, and it turns out there's even more of a point. So I have learned to be very cautious around him, not because he's the person you want around for most of the time, but when we were in the middle of the Great Moderation and I punked out because I was with him and I was giving talks about Epstein and Madoff. They were the two mysterious functions in New York.
Right.
And I used to put slides up about Black Arts Capital. It was sort of a play on like Blackstone or BlackRock. And the idea is we'd tell you what we're doing, but we'd have to kill you.
Right.
We just didn't know. And I got Madoff wrong. I thought he was front running his legitimate business, which turns out it was just a Ponzi scheme.
Right.
But I knew Epstein was very likely to be something totally other than he was. Nassim, during this period of time that we were both discussing the nonsense that was the supposed Great Moderation, was the other guy who would take as much punishment as the community would throw at him. And they would just humiliate him. It's like, oh, he made one lucky trade in 1987. The guy's an idiot. He's a blowhard. He's a fool. And I couldn't take the pressure from giving this talk that obviously we hadn't banished volatility. And I think around 2005, I was about 3 years in, and Nassim says, you know, you're going to regret getting out of this early. You should see it through. And it always stuck with me that I didn't quite have the courage or the strength or the guts or the disagreeability to continue at least to hold the intellectual position. I couldn't time when this thing was going to blow, but it was, you know, I wrote this thing on mortgage-backed securities with Adil Abdulali in 2001. This was nonsense, and it was a world in which almost no one was willing to call it out. And so the singularity in my world about Nassim has to do with he's willing to be one person against billions. He will literally just stand up against any crowd.
Okay, well, so that's often a bug, and you found the one case perhaps where it was a feature. But it's, I mean, first of all, we're all like that to some degree. I mean, we're all standing up against a lot. It's very hard for me. Right. And yeah, but
I mean, I do it and you do it, but yeah, you don't get weak need. I get weak need.
Well, yeah, occasionally, but there is a kind, I mean, again, I'm not to psychoanalyze him, but there's a sort of Trumpian level personality problem layered on top of his intellect, where I'm not disputing the guy is smart. There's no question he's smart, but there's so much personality to get through and wrangle with, to interact with whatever smarts are showing up for, you know, depending on the topic. And again, with some topics, you know, I haven't found the smarts, but I'm not disputing that the guy, obviously he's intelligent. It's just, there's no one more enamored of his intelligence than him. Right. And it's like that level of egocentricity. Again, it has a kind of Trumpian, you know, peacock fan quality to it. And in the cases where it's warranted, it's still extra and it's bullshit and it's annoying. When it's unwarranted, it's embarrassing. And he has zero sense of where he is on that landscape.
I hear what you're saying. I do have the sense of the number of floorboards that I can hide under when the stormtroopers come for me are very few and far between that I can count on, and I can count on his.
Okay, but
so we don't need to derange on that.
You're putting a high price on person. I mean, I get.
Well, no,
you love about
on
personal loyalty. Yeah.
Well, but you know, Sam, honestly I find the same thing about you. Where if I'm in a storm, you're one of the tiny number of phone calls I can place, and it's very odd for me that.
Well, I would want you to feel that way. And,
I do. I absolutely do.
So